just like with anything in life, or even my film projects, that passion might be there, and you do like, like I like filming and I like editing. But then I guess it depends, right? Like just a quick metaphor, like if you're writing an essay, if it's about something you love, you're gonna enjoy writing it. If it's about something you have no interest in, that you've never had any interest in, you're probably gonna dread writing it. You might be a good writer, doesn't mean you're gonna enjoy writing it every time.
Welcome to Out of the Box podcast, where Stu and I, your hosts, get to talk about outside of the box ideas. We're going to be talking about managing projects, when to actually push through a project, when to find motivation to do sometimes projects, artistic projects that you're not completely invested in. So, without further ado, we're going to start it off. But before we actually start, I want to invite you to hit the subscribe button because we are completely committed to continue bringing outside of the box ideas to you. So if you do like this content, please subscribe and we'll get started. So still, tell me, have you ever experienced like a time when you had a project and you were just like not completely invested? I mean, it was kind of along what you like to do, but it was just not there
Oh
completely.
yeah. Oh yeah, every film project I've done basically.
Uh,
But nah, but seriously though, because like, you do have that initial excitement, as speaking both of us like artists or people who enjoy creating things and doing stuff with art. You have that initial passion, that initial excitement when you first started, when you get that inspiration, right? You know what I'm talking about? So like you start working on it and the passion's still there, the inspiration's still there. Like when I don't know, like when I'm writing a script and even a script, that passion can die down. And then, then it gets back up again when you start filming, because the first day of filming and then the second week, the third week, the second month of filming, it's still a little bit there because you're like excited, especially when you're filming certain scenes and making the vision come true and it's like magic. It's like the words are coming to life, right before your eyes. It's crazy. And then halfway through a film project, like I'll start feeling like, oh man, it's just dragging, man. I just want to get this film done with. This is taking so long. Even filming some of the Spider-Man episodes, even like a given film shoot, the Mysterio fight scenes, those are the hardest fight scenes to film because we have this smoke machine that turns off by itself every like 20 seconds when it overheats. So you constantly have to wait for it to cool down and then turn it back on. And when we're filming that Mysterio fight scene, we need the smoke to be a certain way. So it's like it's so without going into too many details, it was an extremely complicated fight scene to film, and it took the whole day. It actually took 2 or 3 days to actually get the whole fight scene done spread over a month. So yeah, when stuff like that happens, yeah, that passion dies down and you start getting frustrated. And
Mhm.
so basically, just sum it up. When I'm working on a film project, when things get tough, because every film project is hard, it doesn't matter what film, it almost doesn't matter what film I've ever made. It gets complicated near the middle, the passion dies down, and then what I do is I just have to force myself to try to finish it. And often the actors too, because their passion dies down too. And then at that point, you're just like, can we just please get this over with? So yeah, I know what you're talking about. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, and it's almost like, you know, like you said, you have that initial spark, like something sparks your curiosity, and then you start adventuring into uncharted waters, or things that might seem like setbacks along the way that you were just not expecting to happen. And since one is leading the project, one has to kind of sometimes push through moments when one is not completely motivated to do the project, right? And sometimes, especially if you're getting paid to do a certain project, it's almost like it's kind of pushing through those moments of I guess, of feeling like you're in a rut kind of thing, because I'm not sure if it's the case with you as well, but sometimes when you have a big project that you're working on and you kind of lose that passion or motivation for it, it almost feels like it becomes a drag, right? To kind of finish it, to kind of complete it. And once you get it done, you do feel that relief, like the weight on your back kind of gets lifted off. But you know, it's almost like bittersweet kind of moment because you have that initial thought of like, oh man, this is gonna be amazing. Like we're gonna do something really cool, and then halfway through it, you have those pains, those struggles, But
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah.
here's my question though. Um, a lot of people say that going through those struggles, going through that pain, actually helps you become, a better, whatever you're trying to be, better filmmaker, better artist, better graphic designer. Sometimes, there's gonna be projects where, going into it, it's not gonna be, you know, what you wanted to do, but maybe that might be a stepping point to another thing. Um, and so what are your thoughts on that? Like on the fact that sometimes there's projects that you might be getting paid for, and financially it might seem like a good situation, and so you just kind of go with that. Um,
Right.
do you just try to find a way to feel satisfied with the project, or because eventually you're gonna gain some skills from whatever project you do, right?
Yeah, like we were talking
So
earlier. Yeah, it's like the pros and cons, you know. So yeah, there have been times where I was paid for certain projects that maybe involve one of my passions, or maybe like involve editing or filming or something or what have you in the past over 10 years actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, there's been different projects where I was paid for that kind of stuff, and maybe at first it's exciting, and by no means like the pay is good. The pay is definitely appreciated, and but like just like with anything in life, or even my film projects, that passion might be there, and you do like, like I like filming and I like editing. But then I guess it depends, right? Like just a quick metaphor, like if you're writing an essay, if it's about something you love, you're gonna enjoy writing it. If it's about something you have no interest in, that you've never had any interest in, you're probably gonna dread writing it. You might be a good writer, doesn't mean you're gonna enjoy writing it every time. Now, like with a film project, right? If it's a film project I'm not passionate about, I may not enjoy every second of it like I would with a film project that I really am passionate about. And so I think that has happened before. And so it can, when you're not passionate about, I think where we're getting at here, it can drag on. It can feel more like I guess it could feel more like work or more like a chore, or maybe even harder to get through in some way compared to when you're really, really passionate about it, really interested in the topic, or you know. So I think
yeah,
like you're asking about a solution. So yeah, the pros and cons. So like that's how I would always look at it. Like, yes, I need this money, and not only that, it's not just the money, but it's also the fact that you're getting experience, and that experience adds up. You put it on your CV, you put it on your resume, and that builds up and builds up. And the more of that you have, especially the more years of it you have, you might actually open yourself up to opportunities in the future for the job that you really want, or maybe a better way of saying it, a job that you're more passionate about, the thing that you're looking for that's more specific to what you personally find enjoyment from. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's some things that we kind of get into uh, because there's some slight curiosity, you know, and you do that, let's say for example a job that seemed interesting when you started, and so you were super passionate about it. 6 months in, 8 months in, you realize, hey, this wasn't for me. We were kind of talking about that.
yeah,
This wasn't for me.
so you do
I
it.
just you did it. You tasted it, you saw what it was like. And I think that's one of the things that right now in our nowadays, a lot of adults or family members sometimes tell us like, hey, like, why are you giving up? Like, you have to be strong, you have to keep going forward. And it's like, I kind of would say I would fight that a little bit, just because right now, especially, us being in our 20s, sometimes our 20s is also a time of experimentation. you try to see like you get a job, and maybe it does go well, it doesn't. A lot of people say like, well, give it a year. If by a year it doesn't work, you know maybe go off of it. And time is relative, like whether that be 6 months that you try different things, as long as you find that one thing that really drives you. But sometimes I think a lot of people don't find it because they don't allow themselves to get that experimentation, right? To try different projects, to try different things, and that pushes people outside, or pushes people to kind of conform with just whatever they've messed with, or they kind of experimented with,
Sure.
right? And so that leads them to a certain limited path, right? Instead of being true to yourself and saying like, hey, 6 months have passed by, I thought it was going to be amazing, but you know what, that was a good experience, I can put it on my resume, I can say that I did it, but I have to move on from this.
Yeah, like
And I think,
I think I can think of an example of that. Like someone from my family didn't really like the job that much, and then now they finally found a job that they're actually really more passionate about, that really fits who they are. So I
that's
think what you're
awesome.
talking about is perfect.
Yeah. And then sometimes I guess it's that fear of like, well, will I find something good? Like I'm leaving this opportunity. It was, it still seems, pretty good, right? But it's not like, wow, I'm just excited to go to work every single day.
Right.
And sometimes even with the things that you're excited, I can, see somebody say like, hey, like, well, sometimes I don't feel excited to go to the work that I actually love. But there's situations when it's like you're just there because it's like it's all right, it kind of pays bills, like, I'm kind of moving forward. But I think, what would you say are some things to assess, to know like, hey, should I stay in this project, should I stay in this job, or should I eventually leave, just find something that's a little bit more artistically pleasing, or just, something that might catch my attention. Should we follow our bliss, should we follow our, excitement, or should we just kind of put that off? Like, what are some identifiers?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I have well, the most practical solution I have, and it's contrary to most people's opinions, but I see both sides of it. So you're postulating the idea that the parent tells you to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, and but if you're not really passionate about it, don't do that. Do what you love, and I agree with that in some way because that's what I've done with my own life. However, because I was a biology major and I switched to communication studies. However, I had a backup plan, and that's where I come into with the practical side of it because I also see the practical side, the parent side, I guess you could call it, where it's genuine concern. Of course, parents can have concern for their children. They want their children to do well. They don't want their children to suffer and
Hmm.
be homeless or struggle with finances and stuff like that, or they just want to get their children out of the house faster. But
Yeah.
like, but I think it's a good balance, right? If you can have a backup plan, and by backup plan I mean you can have a career in college, both a college degree or whatever kind of job that still allows you to pursue your passion on the side, or half and half. Because what I did is I communication studies, I switched to that not because I love writing, because I love filmmaking, because I researched and I found out with communication studies you can get a multitude of jobs, not just
Hmm.
one job, and it's actually pretty strongly guaranteed that you're going to be able to find a job just because of all the variety of jobs you can get with it. And then I also went to psychology, and now I'm getting my counseling license. So that's another very solid backup. So now I have two practical, solid backup financial plans. And it's not saying counseling is a backup. That's gonna be one of my main careers. Like I'm not just gonna like toss it aside. I'm still passionate about counseling. Filmmaking is my main passion. Writing is my main thing. And I chose those careers because if I chose a doctor, I would have no time at all for filming or doing anything artistic. So choosing those careers that are still practical and can make me money and guaranteed to make me money no matter what, compared to like a degree in something that's not going to make me money at all, which you have to be aware of that. Be very careful. So now I can still do filmmaking on the side, and I still do it. I've been doing it for years and years, and I can do stuff like this, projects, art. I can paint stuff like that painting right there. So yeah, I think it is possible to do both as long as you
Yeah.
balance it out.
And I guess like what I'm hearing from your part is that it's also, putting that practical side, like, go, yes, go taste like, maybe 6 months do here, another 6 months do here, but maybe have something like you said, maybe you already have a degree that you can fall back on, or or at least somewhere where you won't have, whenever you're trying different things, you won't you know you won't have food at the table, or stuff like that, like essential things that one needs as a human. And so it's it's basically taking that into consideration too, right? Like the
Exactly.
fact that eventually we have to give some sort of service to the world. um but then again, like, have that time, like you said, those were two really good uh set things that you can fall back on, right? But it's still giving you the opportunity to venture into different projects, to work with different artistic things. Like now that you're doing paintings and stuff like that, you have that time available to kind of still experiment, right? And so I think that experimentation process, like, is definitely, very evident in our 20s, and I think we experience it more now in our 20s than before. And I think we still have, the childhood, uh, time when we're still learning, right? But I think a lot of millennials are finding that, you know they haven't tried a lot, they haven't experimented
I
a
think,
lot,
yeah, that's a good
you
point. 'Cause
know
I think a lot of them, they, and I'm
and so
not
now they're doing
sure
it
if
in
that,
older ages.
I'm not saying every single person, every single millennial, every single person, whatever, or young person, or young person. I'm young, but I'm not saying, like, I think it's a lot of people give up, right? Give up too quickly. I think they try something for a while, but they fail, and then they maybe fail once or twice, and then they just give up and never try it again. I think
Mhm.
persistence is key. I think if you really
Yeah.
want to know whether you can do something and know whether you're really passionate. If I gave up on the first film I made or the second one, because I had so many failures, I wouldn't have made it to the film festival. I wouldn't have my film screened twice, you know? If I would
Yeah.
I had like 9 rejections before that. If I would have given up, I would have never had those opportunities later. So
Yeah. And sometimes, and I think you bring up a good point, there's that persistence aspect too, right? That, that could be an identifier. Have I been persistent in this new task that, I thought was going to be good? Okay. And I think that's why a lot of people say, like, well, give it a year, which basically they're actually saying, be persistent with it. Have you been persistent with it? If somebody's only tried it for 2 weeks, well, they can't really say that, yeah, it's, what they want to do for a living, or that it's not what they want to do for a living. It's just been so short of amount of time.
right.
And so it's really being persistent with it and saying, like, all right, I done it for a year, or I done it for 6 months. That was enough to show me my persistence. I realized that, because I also think that, you've been persistent with it, but also, how are you feeling internally? Are you growing? Are you feeling like, you're being respected amongst the culture that you're in, the environment? So there's a lot of things that go into it as well, right? um is your boss, or whoever you're working with, you know helpful or supportive, different stuff like that, that can make it, healthy, in a healthy environment. Because one can say, like, okay, I'm going to leave because it's not a healthy environment, I'm not growing, I'm not doing any sort of thing like that. So those would be very reasonable things, reasons to leave. But if it has been good and you have somewhat enjoyed it, but something's just not clicking, I think that is also a way to understand, like, hey, like, I've done it, it's cool for my resume, my CV, but I think it's probably time to move on, try something different, because I value time and I want to use the time that I want for the things that I want to be great at, right? So
I agree. I definitely agree. And I think my wrapping up thought is like, a lot of this what we talked about reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs in psychology, I believe. And so like he says, like, you have to meet the bottom needs first, going back to you're talking about like choosing between a practical career and an artistic career. Well, to even enjoy the self fulfillment, the self actualization of art, which I think that is pretty high up there. I would think art is pretty close to self-actualization. You have to have those basic needs met of shelter, food, clothing. And if you can't meet that with a job that's going to pay you and actually let you live, how are you going to be able to do the artistic things you want to do?
Yeah,
You gotta live with that. Yeah.
sounds good. Well, thank you guys. If you listen to the end of this podcast, we really appreciate your time. And please, if you also liked it, please leave a like as well down below. Let us know what you think about projects that you've done in the past. And if there was something interesting that caught your attention, please let us know down below what you thought was really cool. And also subscribe to our channel because we will continue to provide amazing content outside of the box ideas for you and get the ball rolling with different thoughts and stuff like that to help your life. So until next time, we will see you soon.